The police chief in Dallas, Texas, is holding a news conference as we speak, and he's about 20 minutes into this. Imagine he's just giving some updates on what they found, what they know about this Michael X. Johnson or Micah X. Johnson, who apparently planned a much, much bigger attack, but just saw an opportunity with Black Lives Matter, realizing that there would be some police that he could take a few pot shots at. What gets me is the number of people out there still willing to say it's all about the gun. If he Well, the man also said he had bomb making material, which he was apparently not lying about because they found it at his home. So, what about the bomb control? Well, Bill, that's a ridiculous argument because bomb making equipment, most of it is illegal. Well, didn't stop him now, did it? Well, but if he took his guns away, then he wouldn't have any. Well, wait a minute. He got bomb making equipment. Well, yes. Well, then what would stop him? You think a law would stop him from firearms? Well, Bill, if we just melted them all down. Well, couldn't he buy them on like the black market? And that's not saying that, that's not like the white market or I realize people say he said black and that's not nice. But I'm telling you right now that I'm sick and tired of hearing this because the reason this guy did this is because he was an ass. And then let's be quite honest about that. 9:45, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. It's 57. He was a devious, conniving, low-life human being. Does that work for you? Maybe we need more controls on those. I do want to tell you, coming up on a lighter note, on our program Wednesday morning, one of the medical professionals from Tripp Family Medicine is going to be in studio with us. And we'll be talking, we do this every week between 8:30 and 9 o'clock Wednesday mornings. And we generally have a medical issue that we center on. We focus on that particular day. Gives you an opportunity, if you have a question or comment for one of the pros, to actually chime in during the course of our program. That coming up this Wednesday, and I do want to remind you, Tripp Family Medicine is a growing family practice, and they are currently still looking for new patients. And if you are a patient of Tripp Family Medicine and you often have an issue, a medical issue, they generally can see you, if you call in the morning, on the same day. Does not happen at a lot of medical offices unless you have a dire emergency. We do want to point out, Tripp Family Medicine is located on Fillmore Street in Twin Falls, directly across from the main post office. And remember, life's too short not to feel good. So you got all of these people saying that we have to take away firearms and we wouldn't have any problems. But you know what? There's a piece that acknowledges in the New York Times, which is the Bible of American liberalism, acknowledges that perhaps the rhetoric may be more responsible than firearms for what happened in Dallas. Two writers, Yamiche Alcindor, probably no relation to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Michael Barbaro, writing in the New York Times. The headline is this, at least from a liberal viewpoint, Black Lives Matter was gaining ground, then a sniper opened fire. And it says the shootings last week of the motorist, then the fellow outside the convenience store by police officers, and of course, media coverage of it. Media was all over these stories and giving you half of each story to give you the impression that indeed perhaps there is a serious problem here. Was allowing, from a public relations standpoint, Black Lives Matter to regain some of the ground that it had lost because of its bad behavior over the last couple of years. The writers say, then in an instant, everything changed. Black Lives Matter now faces perhaps the biggest crisis in its short history. It is both scrambling to distance itself from an African-American sniper in Dallas who set out to murder white police officers and trying to rebut a chorus of detractors who blamed the movement for inspiring his deadly attack. A couple of years back, oh gosh, I got to go back, I guess, to 2010 is the last time I was at one of the major Tea Party rallies in Washington. I was at the big one in 2009 where we had 1.5 million people. I was back for the Glenn Beck rally the following year in August where we had 600,000 people. And then 2 weeks after that, I was there for the second big Tea Party rally where we had probably 300,000 or 400,000. A lot of people had to make some choices in that. I remember the media saying, well, the crowd much smaller this year than last year. Well, wait a minute. If you drove all the way from Georgia or Alaska to go to the Glenn Beck rally in August, coming back a couple of weeks later for the second Tea Party rally in September probably wasn't in your budget. Media didn't look at it that way, of course, because that might say that the movement hadn't gone away. But I remember the second year we were there, we were walking down Pennsylvania Avenue as we had done the year before. We marched down the main drag there through Washington on our way to the Capitol building. And I remember people coming up to me trying to pretend they were my friend. I was carrying a sign for an old girlfriend, which they were trying to claim was racist. All it did was portray Barack Obama. He had on like a headdress like he was an Egyptian pharaoh. And she was trying to point out that he was thought he was a divine right monarch. And she said, here, carry this. So all of these people kept coming up and asking me questions as if I was a dummy of some sorts. And they would ask me these questions because I knew what they were up to. They were trying to portray everyone here at these rallies as, look at these dumb, racist white people. And I was quick enough that particular day, I guess I had a lot of caffeine in my system, that I was giving them all of these retorts. And people around us started to laugh, and then these guys, these liberals with their cameras would get embarrassed, and then they'd slink off to go try and talk to somebody else. But at one of the rallies that I was at, and I don't remember which one specifically it happened to be, but it was in those three big rallies, I remember there was a group off to the side, and they were nasty, racist people. And immediately, all of the big network cameras and all of the liberal media all raced over there and, oh, this is what this is all about. Yeah, this is what these people are truly all about. These three guys out of these 1.5 million, they're representational of the entire movement, don't you know? I can recall actually going to one of these smaller rallies in Dover, Delaware, in I think 2009 or 2010, and we know that there were at least 1,500 people there because we had them all sign a great big long scroll. And we counted up about 1,500 names on the scroll when the event was done. So there could have been more. Some people may not have signed. And in a small state like that, to bring people out on a Saturday afternoon. And yet, out of all of these people, there was one goofy guy there who was holding a sign that said, Mr. Obama, I have my birth certificate. Do you have yours? And one of the newspapers that came out to cover the event took this fellow's picture with his sign, and they plastered it all over the newspaper to see, aha, you see, these are all birthers, these racist, no good people. You understand what they're all about. Now, there must have been 200 other signs in that crowd that day, most of which dealt with government spending and issues related to the government debt and how we can never afford to pay it back, and all ignored by your friends at liberal media. And another one of the local newspapers actually came down and covered the event, and when no one got beat up, apparently, we didn't burn any hairdressers or, flay any minorities. We ended up getting buried on page A17 and way down at the bottom. Oh, and there was an event at the Capitol today. Wonderful. But a few months later, Occupy demonstrators showed up, and they were camping out on the very same spot we had our demonstration. There were 6 of them. Yes, 6 of them. We had 1,500 on the same location. They had 6. Front page news in those newspapers for weeks on end. In fact, on New Year's Day, a cold New Year's Day, apparently the 6 campers went out and they tied a ball to a pole and they knocked the ball around and played, and that was front page news. Now, somehow, somewhere, those newspaper editors sat down and said, this is a big, big story. 6 old granola-chomping, dope-smoking hippies who haven't had a bath in months are camped out on the green by the state capitol. Why, gosh, that's front-page news. On the other hand, 1,500 people who actually worked for a living came out on a day off or found the time to get away from work, and they came out, and that wasn't front-page news. You do the math, right? You see how media treats these things. So you get these folks out with Black Lives Matter demonstrating in Dallas, in the streets, being protected by the police, and then a black man starts shooting police officers dead. Well, we're told he's not indicative of the movement. But if this had been a Tea Party rally, and a white guy had crawled up into the parking garage and started shooting police officers dead, what do you think the reaction would be from media? 736-0300. That's 736-0300. We communists, we got them now. Front page, all of these Tea Partiers, cop-hating racists. You know exactly, that's exactly what they'd be doing. And you wonder, you folks out there who work in modern news media, you wonder why people don't trust you any longer? Because we know what you're all about. We know that you're a bunch of fellow traveling scum. It's 9:54. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 57 right now. Daily Caller has this. It doesn't get any better on American college campuses. A Cornell University professor charged that the Fraternal Order of Police is a terrorist organization at a Black Lives Matter protest in Ithaca, New York on Friday. I've given money to the Fraternal Order of Police in the past. I mean, I've sent them money. The protest was in response to the deaths of Philando Castile. Again, Philando driving the big expensive car, who was the cafeteria manager. Because, well, you know, cafeteria management pays $250,000 a year at least. Philando apparently had no other job on the side, at least that they could see. The protest was in response to the deaths of Castile and Alton Sterling, reports the Ithaca Voice. The professor is Russell Rickford. And here's a quote. The Fraternal Order of Police is a terrorist organization. And he went on to say, along with a couple of friends, that it was genocide that is going on against Black America, and we need to bring in the United Nations to investigate and sort this out, because apparently our own government won't do it. He is a history professor who specializes in the Black radical tradition. Now, I saw a story as well today. The new Black Panther Party and some of these Black Lives Matter people and a few other of these organizations out there on the fringes are now saying that they need their own separate country. Isn't that amazing? For 50 years, the battle was desegregation. Now they'd like to segregate themselves again. In South Africa, they had what were called the Black homelands. That is, they confined people to these impoverished areas, well, like Indian reservations. Is that what they're looking for? Do they feel that's the only way that they can get along with everyone else and survive? Do they plan to? Do we have to, put up some fencing and say, all right, you got to go live behind that? Good gosh, this is worse than, or as bad as slavery, and yet this is what they claim they want now. That they want to have their own nations and live separately. Well, it's difficult to have two same nations occupying the same space. So they would have to have somebody walling them off or fencing them off or whatever it is they want for their own protection. And if that happens, do they really believe, though, that they're going to attract heavy industry and in computer chip makers and all of the things that they would need for a booming economy? Or would they end up with something that was akin to reservation life here in the United States or to the Black homelands in South Africa? And that is poverty. Tremendous poverty, abject poverty, poor health care, no money, and just essentially a check from the state every month saying, you're now wards of the state. Here's a little alcohol, keep yourself busy, and die off. Coming up on the end of our program today, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. Well, this guy's a piece of work. Appearing yesterday on NBC's Meet the Press, and he got angry with one of the other guests, a white person, and started shouting.
So it is about race. So when you say, hold on, it's not about race, of course it is. It's just not about blackness. It's also about whiteness. And we don't have a conversation in this country with race and whiteness. Whiteness is at stake. Donald Trump has, I think, in a beguiling way, seduced many working class white people into believing that he will be their defender when indeed he is not. And on top of that, Hillary Clinton, when we get past the optics and cosmetics, has put forth consistently public policy recommendations that will speak to the vicious undercurrent of racism in this country, but also bring together various constituencies along the continuum of race in this country.
Right. Along the continuum of race in this country. Of course, Hillary's just told everybody that everything's going to be free. Universal pre-K, free college. Yeah, right. What a scam. And this guy's making a buck off all this too, isn't he? 9:58, I've got to say goodbye for the day. God willing, if the creek don't rise, they'll allow me to come back in here tomorrow morning and pour a little more kerosene on the fire. In the meantime, Rush Limbaugh will be along following Fox News in just a few minutes. Just after 1 o'clock news, Sean Hannity scheduled today. And just after 4 o'clock news today, Glenn Beck, Dave Ramsey tonight from 7 until 10. Have a great day, folks.